This is Alex with My Addiction Stories. Today I'm actually sharing with you a really great story. It's about a father who reached out to me and wanted to share his story about his daughter and her going through her active addiction and him going through his experience while she was going through her active addiction. So here's Steve.
Hello, I'm making this video for my friend Alex Freelander, who started this page. Alex is a very good friend of mine, and we met through my daughter, who was also in recovery with Alex. My daughter is 26 years old, going to be 27. She's been clean about 5.5 years, and this is my perspective as being a parent of a recovering addict, and what we go through is just, I hate to use the word just as hard, but as hard, or maybe, I don't know the word that I'm truly looking for, but it's very difficult to go through and watch your loved one, and especially your child, go through addiction and fight addiction and suffer as much as they do. But we as parents also suffer through your sickness and illness, and live that life and that journey along with you, and along the lines of not knowing the outcome, the struggles, but also you as the addict don't really know what you put us through as parents. The journey started many years ago. A little history about us. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I did 25 years and 2 months. My assignment for 10.5 years was I was in charge of criminal investigations, which led to narcotics investigations, narcotic buys and busts, undercover work. I did that for many, many years, and then I was put in charge of the criminal investigations division. My daughter was born back in 1990, so that would make her 26. She's going to be 27 in the end of this month, or end of November, or middle of November. We were always close. We were inseparable. She was one of the people that Guy prayed to God for, that I wanted wholeheartedly a daughter to raise and to make my own, and to just be daddy's little girl. I mean, I think that's every father's dream, is to have daddy's little girl, as much as they like the boys, and I have one of them too. But to have a daughter was just something that I always wanted. We were very close growing up, very, very close. Took her everywhere as a child, did things together, went everywhere. She's so heavily involved in sports, was back then, and even now still follows the Giants. I know I have a Jets shirt on, but the Giants are off today. And we have a lot in common. Her attitude and demeanor is just as much as mine. I raised my daughter to be a self-sufficient, self-reliant individual who didn't allow anybody to walk all over her. She was involved in sports. She cheerleaded for many, many years. She danced from the age of 3 until she graduated high school. I was an involved parent. We didn't have a lot of the typical issues and things that people feel leads to addiction. It wasn't a broken household. She wasn't abused sexually, mentally, physically. She wasn't a victim of a household where there was a lot of drama. Her mom and I did separate when they were young, but I lived in the same house because our agreement was be there for the kids. We don't have to be there for each other, but be there for the kids. We weren't arguable. We didn't fight. My ex-wife and I, we didn't do any of that. We just didn't get along. Because my wife, I should say my ex-wife, is an alcoholic, but she can't and doesn't admit it and won't see it and admit it. But you know what? So be it. I started to notice changes in my daughter when she was about 15, 16 years old. She started to change. She was never a great student, but she got enough and did enough to get by. When she turned 16, her attitude changed a little bit. more involved with boys. She always had a boyfriend. She always needed somebody around. It wasn't that she was searching for a father figure, because I was there. Um, we had a great relationship, as I said earlier, but it was just one of those things that you just notice changes, and slowly but surely it started to get worse. Sleeping all day. I knew all the telltale signs. Like I said, I was involved in narcotics. I was involved in narcotics investigations. I saw how drugs affected people, from pills to weed to heroin to crack and meth. I investigated thousands of cases with that, did undercover buys, bought buys. I used to take 500, 600, 1,000 decks of heroin off the streets on a weekend, and lock people up for it. So I knew what it was doing, and I knew that there was an issue. I just had a very tough time thinking that my child would be going down that road. But I was never one of those parents that it was always not my child, not my daughter, not my son. It was always, okay, what did my son do, or where did they get that stuff? And yeah, it probably was them. She started drinking a little bit more. I found the empty bottles at the house. But what 16-year-old child didn't? What 17-year-old didn't? We all did it. I did it. I was no angel. Back in the day, before I was a cop, I wasn't a cop. I did experiment with some drugs. Not addicted. Smoked a little weed. Did what I had to do to get by, But it was one of those things that it started getting worse. Spoke to my daughter numerous times about it. Told her that I was there for her if she's getting high, because I found the weed. Smelled the weed in her car. Saw the empty water bottles, opened them, smelled them of the alcohol. I knew it was one of those things where she needed to get a hold of it. Spoke to her numerous times about it. Took her car away, grounded her, did everything a parent should do. She met a guy, a boyfriend, same age as her. They experimented a little bit. First it was 5 milligrams of oxy. Did that for a little while. Smoked a little weed. Maybe did a little coke. Then it went to 10 milligrams. Then I started to notice even more of a change in her. After a while, the depression, the sleeplessness, out all night, coming home at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning as she graduated, skipping from job to job. And I told her, this stuff's got to stop. It's got to stop. You're going to ruin your life. Let's get help. I'm there for you. I'll do what needs to get done. Let's get this. No. I just party a little bit. It's no big deal. I'm just smoking a little weed, just drinking a little bit. Just wasn't there. Just could tell that something's not right. Slowly but surely, it got a little bit worse. I caught it. I seen it. Did it again. I never really enabled her as an enabler should. Did I start to blame myself for some of her addiction and problems? Absolutely. But I think that I could have been a cause of it because the marriage was failing. Yeah, I did. I had a tough time struggling with that. Lo and behold, finally, it became too much. I gave her the ultimatum. You have to choose between the drugs and your family. You need to choose between what's right and what's wrong. I will support you 110%, but you need to make the decision. She said, no, there is no issues, there's no nothing. One of the toughest things a parent could ever do is to walk away from their child to do the tough love. I walked away from my daughter. I told her, since you've made your decision that the drugs are more important than the love of your family, and especially me, your father, it's time for me to walk away. I walked away from her and did not speak to her one single day in over 4 months. This was middle of 2010, 2011. I said to her, if you can't choose between what is right, as in your family, then you need to do this on your own, and I can't be part of it. So I walked away, not knowing what she was going to do, where she was going to be, or how she was going to survive out on the streets. Well, being in narcotics and being a very small, close-knit town, I had several friends within the Tri-County area in New Jersey that knew me and knew of her. So I was somewhat kept abreast of where she was at and what she was doing. She showed up on a number of investigations with dealing with people that she was buying drugs or hanging out. And it really bothered me. They used to call me and said, "Hey, you're doing an investigation, your daughter's name's popped up. She's associated with such and such a person, or she's hanging out in such and such an area, which is a known narcotics and drug trafficking area. Just want to let you know." At that time, my response to them was, "Listen, don't do me any favors. I don't need any favors. You want to do me a favor? Next time she's down in that area, lock her up. Put her away and charge her. It's the only way she's going to be able to get clean. It's the only way that she's going to get the help if she needs the help. If not, her bed, let her lay in it." And again, this was a very, very tough decision as a parent, as a police officer, and as a loving father that gave the world to my kids. But it needed to get done. It needed to be handled in the proper way, because I knew that if they did me the favor and cut her loose, it wasn't helping anything or helping anybody, especially her. And the justice that they thought they were going to be doing was more of an injustice than anything to me and to her, to get her clean. One night on vacation, I was down in North Carolina in the Outer Banks. This is in the height of my daughter's drug addiction. I get a phone call at 4:30 in the morning. Any parent knows that the phone ringing at 4:30 in the morning is never, ever good news. I pick up the phone and I look and see that it's a New Jersey number. So I answer it. And on the other end of the phone was a police officer saying, "Hey brother, it's Officer so-and-so from so-and-so police department." I just said two things to them. Is she alive, or is she under arrest? His words back were, "Oh, she's alive, and no, she's not under arrest." Although my heart sank, and it's still tough to talk about today, I said to him, "What's the situation?" He tells me that he pulls the car over after smelling marijuana as it passed at a light with them, searched the car, and they came up with a few grams of marijuana, paraphernalia and everything else. It was her and her girlfriend, one of her best friends, who also was her party hound and her individual that got high and stoned with. You know the person that I'm talking about. The one that you thought is your best friend, but really isn't your best friend. Well, anyway, he says to me, "She didn't bother to tell me who you are, and I know who you are by your reputation, so I'm going to cut her a break." My response to him was, "Please, don't do me or her a favor. You do what you need to do and lock her up if she needs to get locked up." He says, "I can't do that to a brother officer's daughter or child. It's not how I was raised, and it's not in my conduct." My response back to him once again was, "You're not doing me any favors by not arresting her." We hung up, and he promised that he would call me the next morning and apologize deeply for waking me up at 4:30 in the morning and scaring the shit out of me. I spoke to her beforehand, and I said to her, "We're done. We're done again. Don't call me until you're ready to get help." Well, next day, I get a phone call. He cut her a break because he thought it was the right thing to do. Okay. Another month and a half, 2 months goes by. Nothing from my daughter. Not a thanks, no, nothing. She finally calls and says, "Dad, I'm ready to get help." I say, "Okay, fine. The way we're going to do this is you're going to go away. You're going to go away to an outpatient treatment center and get the help." "Nope, not doing it. Not going. I want to do an inpatient, intense outpatient program." Steph, they don't work. I had a history of this. I had friends that were in recovery. I had friends that went through the programs of IOP, and they don't work. I don't care what anybody tells you. They don't work. So we argued back and forth a little bit, hung up, called me back, cursing me out, hanging up, back and forth, because she wanted to do it her way. Weeks went by, back and forth, playing the phone tag, so I finally relented and said, "Fine, if you're willing to do this, no problem." I reached out to a friend of mine who got me into a very good IOP for her, set it all up, paid money to get her in. And I had an agreement with the intake officer, although she was now 20 years old, he would give me the information that he could, limit it to how she was doing and her looking, see if it was really working. But I knew it wasn't going to. 3 weeks into the program, I get a phone call from him saying your daughter has missed numerous check-ins 3 times a week, failed several drug tests, so on and so forth. Really? Shocking. Okay. Oh, in the meantime, every day my daughter would call me and say, hey, I'm on my way to the IOP, I'm in the parking lot, I'm walking in, I love you, thanks for getting me clean, thanks for helping me. Of course, it was all bullshit. And then she, later on, after she gets clean, tells me, yeah, what a joke that was. On the breaks, the coffee or smoke breaks, we'd be outside snorting pills, snorting heroin, whatever the situation may be. So, as I said, it didn't work. I let her tell me, after the phone call, I called her and asked her how she was doing, and she said, oh, I just left, which was a lie, and I'm going to work or whatever. Okay. Let her tell me the whole story. Told her it lied. Told her that I was done with her. Told her that I can't deal with her lying, and so on and so forth. If you want to lie, go lie to somebody else, but you're not lying to me. We hung up and I didn't speak to her for 6 months later. Now we're into 2012. And I said to her, listen, you want help before this, before I didn't talk to her for the 6 months. If you want help, you come get me, but we will do it my way. Again, for 6 months, nothing. Do you know what it's like for a parent to not know where their firstborn, the love of their life, their daughter, their daddy's little girl, is, not knowing if she was dead or alive, waiting by the sleepless nights of the phone on the end table, sitting there waiting for that phone call. By this time I had been retired, so I had a lot of freer time on my hand. I used to go and check all the haunts that I knew that she was at, or where she could be. I saw her once or twice. I didn't approach her. I let her go. Just as long as I knew that she was alive. I knew the parties that she went to, the places where she went. Numerous contacts with other investigators throughout the state and the counties saying, hey, your daughter's popping up on radar. She's either dealing or trafficking or in the areas. Again, my responses were, lock her up. She needs the help. Let her find what she needs to find. Finally, after a very long and arduous and tough 6 months, she calls me and says, Dad, I need help. I need help bad. I'm suffering. I said, well, Steph, how do you think I feel? How do you think me, your dad, is feeling? You want help? We're going to do it my way. She said, okay, fine. But I'm not leaving the state of New Jersey. Because she knew that my intentions were to get her out of state to get her clean. But she didn't want to believe in me that it would work. Or what was best for her. And again, it's a decision that you as the addict need to make as to whether or not you want to get clean. But I thought that she, and I came to find out later on that she knew that she needed the help, but she figured she could do it her way, but just appease me because, hey, I'm Daddy's little girl. He'll do anything for me. Well, she was wrong. Dad is a very stubborn individual and wouldn't give in. Finally, after several phone calls of hanging up and going back and forth and yelling and screaming at her, or her at me, I should say, about her not wanting to leave the state, she consented. That was the end of June. It took me a few days to get her settled and to get all the information together to send her to a treatment program in Florida. I picked her up at the airport in North Carolina, where I was living now, and she looked like death warmed over. Skin and bones, pocked face, scraggly hair, the shakes. I had all I could do not to cry. All I wanted to do was hug her and love her and make sure that she was safe. Make sure that her life could possibly get back on track. Now I know that first-timers fail. They fail hard sometimes, unless they truly want it. She came and lived with me for 2 days, and she detoxed a little bit. Finally, July 5th, 2012, I was able to get her into a treatment program and fly her down to Florida. I sat there and I listened to the intake officer who told me, "You may want to leave, Mr. DeRosa, because..." Edit that out, my name. What you're about to hear is going to be tough on you on the questions I'm going to ask her. So she asked my daughter, "What age did you start? What drugs did you do? Reasons behind it. Okay, your next thing. What was the next drug that you did?" And it all started from drinking, then to marijuana, then to 5, then to 10, then to 20 milligrams, then 50 milligrams, then snorting it, then doing crack, then smoking a little meth, then eventually snorting and smoking heroin. I listened to this and I was in total and complete shock. And my daughter looked at me and said, "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I let you down." To hear your child say that still to this day rips me apart. Nah, you didn't let me down. But you will give your best and try your best to get clean. That's all I ask. I left her there and I got back on a plane 6 hours after landing in Florida, back to my home. It was one of the toughest things that I've ever had to do. Almost just as tough as walking away from her. She fought it. She's clean. She struggles. But during this journey, I, as a parent, struggle too, knowing that any day, any moment, and any second, she could relapse. During this 5.5 years, she's lost many of her closest friends to people that have been in and out of rehab and gotten clean. She lost friends that were clean for several years, several months, and several weeks, all because they relapsed. I continued to talk to her throughout her journey of being clean. I continued to talk to her through the process. It was one of the hardest things I have to do, because now your mind starts to divert when you don't talk to your daughter every day, and it goes to 2 to 3 days, just like it was when she was using that she's out there using again. I haven't spoken to her. She's back to her old ways, old habits, old tricks. We had a long talk and she said to me one day, "Dad, you need to give up on that. You need to stop thinking like that. I'm clean and I'm sober and I'm living my life." Here it is, 5 years, 4.5 months. It's easy to say 5.5 years for me, that she's clean. She's never left Florida, and she stayed. After being clean for about 1.5 years, she said to me, "You know what, Dad? My intentions was come down here, satisfy you, do the 30, 45 days, whatever it was going to take for me to get clean, and then go back to New Jersey. I could kick it. The best decision I ever made was never to go back to New Jersey, Dad. Not now, not ever. I know there's going to be a time she's going to go back. And when she does go back to visit her mom, who still lives in New Jersey, and see some of her old friends, I worry and I pray every day that she's there, that she doesn't go back, meet her old contacts, get high, just do one little pill, one little line, because we all know how that ends up. So the journey that you take and that you've taken as an addict isn't just your journey. The people in the lives that you touch and that love you is just as hard. And again, I hate saying that, but it is just as hard as a journey on us as it is on you to be clean. We worry every day, every moment, even now that she's a new mom with a young child, which in my eyes is God's blessing to her to give her something more to live for and to look forward to and to treasure and to cherish and to stay clean for. That's my honest opinion. God works in mysterious ways. And I think this is one of the ways He's helping my daughter stay clean. If not, the only thing I could do is do exactly what I did before. Get her the help. And I tell her all the time, Steph, if you ever feel that need to use again, or if you start using, because there was a while there that I thought she maybe start using again, I'm there for you. Just be honest with me and tell me that. And one thing I can honestly say about my daughter is that she is a person of her word. And she said to me, Dad, I broke your heart once. I'll never break it again. She had a friend that went missing for a few days. They relapsed, and he ended up dying because they relapsed. Her reply to me, Dad, is she called me up and she said, I love you and I'm very sorry for all that I did to you and did for you, against you, when I was using. When I went missing, couldn't find me because I went through it for 3 days. Sleepless nights, wondering, checking, but you did this several times, 4 to 6 months at a time, not knowing. I know what you went through, and I'll never do that to you again. I know that's a promise that she can't really keep, but I hope she does. So this is my story. A little bit long, a little bit winded, but I wanted to share a parent's perspective of how hard it is on us and how deeply and emotionally we get touched by your addictions. Your parents and your loved ones are there for you. Please remember, the journey you take is not alone. If you're clean, stay clean. If you need help, get the help. If you want help, it's there, but you've got to want it yourself. Somebody is always there to get your back. I have helped numerous friends of mine get their kids clean or walk the walk that I walked. And I talk to you in the shoes of a father who did this. Not some politician or some person who just wants to talk about it. Just a father who did what any parent would do for their child. I love you all, and Alex, thank you very much for allowing me to share my story. God bless.
Steve, thanks so much. That was a great story. It really hit home for me, and I'm sure that it hit home for a lot of parents out there who are going through or have gone through what you've gone through. So thank you so much again, Steve. If there are any parents out there that are struggling, who want to share their story, who want advice, who want to feel not alone anymore, I want to hear your story. I want to hear your message. I want to hear your heart. Who's going to share their story next?